This is the Wall Street for Main Street radio podcast, your number one destination for financial news, information, and education with no strings attached. Be sure to check out our other podcasts and articles at www.wallstreetformainstreet.com. Now, here are your hosts, Jason Burek, Mo Dawood, and John Manfreda.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wall Street for Main Street podcast. My name is Mo Dawood, and today's special guest is Jeff Siegel. He's the publisher and managing editor of Green Ship Stocks. He's also their managing editor for Energy and Capital. He recently wrote a book called The Libertarian Tree Hugger. Jeff, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Did I say your last name right? I just want to make sure before we move on here.
Yeah, Jeff Siegel.
All right, great. So, Jeff, I want to start off this podcast by talking about the economy in general and where it's headed. You know, it's been 5 years, over 5 years since the last financial crisis, and nothing has improved for the most part in the economy. You ever think to yourself and thought what would happen if the government didn't bail out the banks and the Federal Reserve didn't put the interest rate all the way to almost zero? What would happen to the economy? Maybe we'd be better off.
Oh, I think it would be. I think we're under the illusion that the economy is great right now, especially with retail investors just piling into the market. And they think everything's great, and the market goes higher and higher, not realizing that it's essentially being built on a stack of flimsy cards. It's funny you say that. You know, what would have happened if there weren't the bailouts and the market was just allowed to react naturally and organically? And I think over the long term, it definitely would have been better for everyone, because I think we're in a position now where, again, this kind of booming economy is a complete illusion. It's built on this premise that the central banks can keep everything afloat and everything's be fine and inflation will be reined in, and it's almost like someone's weaving this tale and hypnotizing people into believing everything's fine. And I really feel bad for a lot of individual investors who are getting caught up in it. And I'm really, I believe it will be sooner than later that it's all going to come crashing down again, and people are just going to be left high and dry, just like they were last time, maybe even worse.
Yeah, it could be worse than what we had in 2008. If you look at the trend, like it seems like every 10 years we have a major financial crisis. We had the 2000 tech bubble, and then almost 10 years later, it was about 8 to 9 years later, we had the housing bubble. Now it seems like we're due for another major crash coming up again, and this time it's going to be the debt bubble, and the stock market bubble, student loan bubble. Yeah. You name it. There's a lot of bubbles out there.
I know, and it's interesting you say that, because I feel like they're all kind of tied together to this one train that's about to go off a cliff. I mean, like you mentioned, the debt bubble and the student loan bubble, and we talk about what's going on overseas with the euro, what's going on in China and Russia and the Middle East. I mean, I'm not a history expert. And I'm sure things in many respects are a lot better now than they were over, hundreds of years ago. But again, it's amazing to me when I see all the stuff that's going on in the world today, and not to be a downer, but how can you put on a straight face and say, yeah, this is a great time to, invest in, stock XYZ. I mean, I'm not really a doom and gloom guy or anything, but, quite frankly, I think now's a really good time to be kind of hunkering down and getting ready for something that's going to wipe a lot of people out.
Yeah, that's a good point. It seems like something around the corner is about to happen. And unfortunately, government is a very reactive group. They're not very proactive on trying to prevent another crisis. And there's a lot of stuff they could do right now if they want to improve the economy, but right now they're just kicking the can down the road.
Right. Which is one of the reasons I'm not really a big fan of government altogether. So.
Yeah, same here. So let's shift gears here and talk about what I think is one of the most fascinating technology company out there, and that's Tesla Motors, which is created by Elon Musk, who used to was one of the founders for PayPal, and he created Tesla and a couple other companies he got going on right now, including SpaceX. I mean, I think Tesla is doing great things with their technology, with the electric cars. But if you look at the financials for this company right now, the stock is trading at $191. The market cap is about $24 billion. And yet, if you look at their financial statement, they haven't even made a profit yet. Do you think this company is overvalued?
Well, let's put it this way. I am no longer a shareholder. I got out when the getting was good. I think Tesla has a lot of potential. If you want to value it based on the technicals, the $191 price tag makes 0 sense. I think a lot of people value Tesla not so much on the technicals as much as they value the company on the existence of Elon Musk and what he is capable of doing. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. I tend to be a more conservative investor, I have a lot of faith in Elon Musk. I think he's going to do great things. I think Tesla's going to do great things. But as an investor, I would not go back into the stock right now, because I just don't see, I see the downside being more, apparent there than the upside. I think we had a great run with Tesla. Very, very happy with that one. But going forward, I continue to write about Tesla. I continue to cover the stock, even though I don't currently own it, because I do think it's probably one of the most important companies in the world today, based on what they're doing. And there's a lot of potential. I mean, if you look beyond the cars, and if you look at Tesla as possibly being one of the largest battery manufacturers in the world, not just for cars but for homes. I mean, this is a huge, huge game changer. And if he can pull it off, I mean, Tesla will be, without a doubt, one of the biggest, most profitable companies in the world. I mean, they'll be taking on, the utilities. They'll be taking on the status quo. Even if you look at beyond the Tesla electric cars themselves, other electric cars are coming to market, every year. And they're going to need batteries. And I guarantee you that Tesla will be more than happy to provide those batteries. So I think they're on a great trajectory. I think they're doing great things. I think they're making the important investments now. As an investor, I would not buy the stock now, but I would continue to watch it and look for maybe opportunities to get in and get out if you want to trade it, or just follow and see if there's any dips that come along, and look to the future. And if you're not that concerned about the technicals and you believe in Elon Musk and the power that he has, go for it. I think a lot of people did that with Tesla early on. My initial reaction when Tesla was probably about $80, which is a long time ago, it seems, was to sell. And I actually held on, not because the technicals made sense. I held on because I knew that the momentum behind Elon Musk was so strong, it would carry over. And it did. At this point, though, I don't trust the broader market. And I think that, with all the investments that Tesla's doing right now, I think it's going to be, it's again, I guess the best way to put it is there's less upside potential, I think, with Tesla as a stock right now. So that's why I'm not personally in it now. But I will tell you that when my next car dies, my current car dies, my next car will be a Tesla.
That's great. I mean, I believe in Elon Musk, but I don't want to buy his stock at $191 either. I mean, but I like the way they have shifted their game plan to rather just focusing on electric cars. It's like they're trying to leverage their game-changing batteries and try to use it for other things other than electric cars. And one of the things that you mentioned is the home battery pack. And now, recently, Elon Musk said that at the end of this month, he's going to make a big announcement regarding a home battery pack, where people can put this battery pack into their home, and if they get solar panels, and one of the biggest problems with solar panels is when it's no sun out there, it doesn't work. and there's no way of storing all that energy from the solar panels. And one of the things that the home battery pack would do is store all that energy so that when there's no sun out, you could still have electricity in your house. So basically, your house could become your own power plant.
Exactly.
And you could be off the grid.
Yeah,
which is
absolutely. I mean, and I actually discussed that recently. I know a few people that are off grid now that do have batteries, but they're not. I don't know if you've ever seen what a solar or a battery backup looks like for solar now, but they're very big, very cumbersome, very expensive, and they don't really look that great because most of them look like car batteries, and you have like a row of 40 or 50 car batteries, secluded somewhere, either within your home or outside of your home. So it's not. Being off grid has never been easy if you're just doing it on solar. But this battery pack, the way it has been described, I mean, wow, it's almost like, if you think back to the earliest computers, with those big open reel machines that they put in gigantic, buildings, and they had punch cards and stuff. And then you consider, your laptop now or your smartphone. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. You're talking about this idea of taking these gigantic, storage systems, which are massive and very hard to put together if you don't know what you're doing. There aren't really companies that do this unless they're solar companies. And all of a sudden you have this battery pack that looks like it might even look like a piece of art or something on your wall, and that could power your house. And that's when I think about that. I was like, that's why I say that could really put Tesla in a whole new ballpark. And really be such a huge game changer, even if you don't want to go off grid. Okay, say you get the battery pack, you could generate enough power through your solar panels that if you have any extra power, you can send it to the grid and get paid for that, and then the residual power you just keep in your battery, and then you run that over the night or the next day. I mean. And, the cool thing about this battery, too, is it doesn't just have to be solar. I mean, it could be anything. I mean, you could just store power in your home now, almost use it as like a backup generator of sorts. I mean, I think that would be kind of downplaying or belittling the ability of the technology. But, there's a lot of things you can do with it. And if Tesla can deliver that battery at a good price, I mean, it's not going to be long before every solar installer is offering that thing. And Solar City is going to be the first one because they're in bed together. And I don't know if you know, but the CEO of Solar City is Elon Musk's cousin, and Elon Musk is the chairman of Solar City. Solar City is the largest installer and solar financing company in the country. They do something like almost 40% of all the installs in the country. So, I mean, if you want to we're talking about game changing here. I mean, you're talking about Tesla with this battery, hooking up with Solar City to provide this. I mean, wow, it's almost hard to put into words because you're looking at something that, I've heard of, my parents and their generation say, oh, I remember when, this, something, I don't know, when they started using jet planes or something like that, I mean, this is that huge of a deal. So yeah, I mean, again, I have a lot of respect for Elon Musk, and I have a lot of faith in his ability to be, a Thomas Edison or Steve Jobs. I mean, he's just that important, and we're going to see soon enough. So, and then and interestingly, I would say that there are some people who still doubt Tesla and Elon Musk. There was a guy from Bank of America. I can't think of his name, his analyst. And I know he's bearish on the stock, which is fine. I get that. But he was I think he's always been very critical of Tesla as based on what the business is, and was saying that it was a really long shot for him to pull off this battery. And my first thought was, this guy developed a reusable rocket. I'm pretty sure he knows how to build a battery to put in your house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the thought of using a rocket to go in the air, into space, and then bring it back on Earth so you could use it again, that idea is like crazy. Like, wow. So, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm not gonna doubt Elon Musk. I mean, I hope this home battery pack can come to reality, because that would be a great thing for people that want to get solar panels for the house and get off the grid, because the grid is outdated and it's very fragile too. And I think like one major terrorist attack on one of the power plants could like completely shut down electricity for a majority of the area in the Northeast. I read that somewhere. I don't know where.
Yeah, I mean, the grid, the national grid, is incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
And they don't really talk about it a whole lot because they don't want to freak people out. But I've talked to enough engineers and people that work, building these transmission lines, and I mean, they've been all, very upfront with me about how vulnerable it is. And it is. There's a kind of liberating feeling about that too, when you don't have to rely on the utility to provide you with your power, and you can do it yourself. Especially when you can make it so easy. I mean, once you get solar panels installed, and if you have that battery backup, there's not a whole lot you have to do.
I agree. So another problem with Tesla is that the electric cars themselves are very expensive and not made for the middle class like me, who want to get a Tesla car but I can't afford it. Mm-hmm. Right now, they're working on trying to create a more affordable car. Do you think that something that it's gonna attract more people to Tesla to try to buy Tesla? Because in this economic condition, it's hard to buy a $20,000 car. So what do you think on their effort in trying to make it a more affordable car?
I think that's where they're gonna make most of their money from selling cars. We're still about, I believe, 3 years away before that one comes out and goes in production. I think by then enough people will know enough about electric cars and not. I think when electric cars first came out, people were kind of like, they were used to these old electric cars, which were they were always called glorified golf carts. And clearly that's not what Elon Musk produced. So now, you can see Teslas all over the place. They're always getting these great reviews. People are less, I think people are less, what's the word I'm looking for? They're less doubtful, I guess, about the ability of electric cars and what they can do. Agree. I mean, yeah, in comparison to internal combustion vehicles, they are expensive. And I think that you'll have that with any kind of disruptive technology. If Elon Musk can get that more affordable vehicle out, and by more affordable, I would say more affordable for electric cars of that stature, you're looking about $35,000 for that vehicle, which is still kind of high, I think, for most people to afford a car. But that being said, while I believe Tesla has the best electric car on the market, there are plenty of other automakers that are pumping them out too. I'm pretty sure Nissan and GM will have something more affordable around that time as well. I suspect by the end of this decade, you'll see at least one or two electric car models that are competitive with similar internal combustion models. And the good thing about that is by that time, those batteries will be strong enough to give you at least 200 miles on a single charge. And I'm not sure if you know this, but more than 70% of the commuting population in the United States drives 40 miles per day. So when people talk about range anxiety and being worried about, there's no gas station or what are they going to do if they run out of charge, the possibilities of that are pretty slim if you're using it to go back and forth to work every day. And if you're looking to take a long road trip, 1,000-mile road trip, clearly you would not take an electric car, at least at this stage. So, I mean, I think that sometimes this idea of range anxiety is a bit overblown. I would also mention that, by 2020, you're going to be hard pressed to go anywhere without seeing fast charging stations. With those being whether they're Tesla's charging stations or they are charging stations that have been developed by Siemens or GE or a number of any other companies that are building them. So that was a very long explanation of what I think your question was. Yeah, the cars are not cheap right now. I don't expect them to be considerably competitive until we get to around, I would say, between 2017 through 2020 is when we're going to start seeing the prices come down enough and the battery range increasing enough to attract those who are not necessarily high net worth individuals, or at least people that are well off enough to afford, a $70,000-$80,000 car, $100,000 car. So yeah, again, it's if we can look at where we were just 5 years ago and where we are today as far as battery density and the pricing of these batteries and the vehicles, I mean, so much has been accomplished in such a small amount of time. Give it another 5 years, and they'll be knocking them out of the park.
And that's a great thing about free market and capitalism. When there's a problem, the free market solves that problem. We have high gas prices. So, okay, so let me create a very nice electric car for you that you can drive around. That's not very nerdy, or not cool to drive around. Oh, it's too expensive. Well, give me a few years and I'll create a more affordable electric car for you to drive. And how am I going to charge it if I'm out on the road? Let me create a supercharging station so you can charge your car in like 10 minutes.
Right.
The free market can solve these problems.
But that being said, I would argue that it's still not really a free market in a sense that, okay, if you buy an electric car, you're going to get a tax, you're going to get an incentive. You're going to get a $7,500 rebate that the taxpayer pays for. So that's not really a free market situation. On the other hand, if you look at how the infrastructure we have in place now for gas stations to sell gas and diesel, those are all heavily subsidized as well. So, I would say that I agree with what you're saying, with the understanding that it's free, it's called free market light. It's like we have entrepreneurs coming up with ideas, but I think that if the government just got out of the way and wouldn't subsidize anything, I think that electric cars would be, we'd see a lot more of them today. They'd be a lot cheaper. The internal combustion engine would be on its way out. And I think really the government, through taxation, and through regulatory regimes has really, I would say, slowed the growth of these new developments. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, you make a great point. I mean, government does slow down innovation in a lot of the industries in this country. So I don't want to talk about too much about Tesla because it's another topic I want to discuss, and it's a very underrated industry, and that's water and water investing. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed Rick Roll from Spot, and he lives in California, in Southern California, San Diego area, where there's a big problem with the water shortage. So I asked him about, is this an opportunity for investors to invest in water? And he said yes. And there's a lot of stuff out there for people to invest in the alternative energy market to help offset the problem California having with the water shortage. One of them is algae. A lot of them, one of them is desalination plants, and et cetera and et cetera. And there's a lot of great technology coming out to help solve the water shortage, not in just in this country and all around the world as well. So I want to ask you, does the California water crisis present an opportunity for investors?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Rick. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there, and you bring up some good points. If we look at renewable energy, particularly solar and wind, these are forms of power generation that don't require large amounts of water, which we need with coal and nuclear. So anytime you can utilize a technology that requires less water, you're taking a step in the right direction. Desalination is very interesting, and there's a really good connection to renewable energy with desalination. Desalination is what we tend to call an energy hog. It uses an enormous amount of power, and so if you are reliant upon a power source that is not renewable, that requires a significant amount of water to operate, you're kind of you're making the problem worse while you're trying to get some more water inland. It's like, okay, well, how much water is it going to take to cool these power plants while I get water out of the ocean so I can provide more water? It's kind of, running on a treadmill. And the great thing is a lot of the newer desalination plants are utilizing solar technology to power them or at least partially power them. There's one in Australia, I believe went online last year. And I think it's something like 80% powered by solar and 20% natural gas, maybe. I can't remember what the other 20% was, but 80% was solar. I think that all the new desalination plants you're going to see are going to have a huge renewable energy component to them, simply because it's too expensive to run them on fossil fuels and nuclear. And again, if they're not renewable, they're going to utilize too much water for that power generation. The weird thing about water is, and I've always found this interesting, I've been writing for a long time, and anytime I write about opportunities in water, people fall asleep. I don't know if it's just a boring topic or they don't want to hear about it because they can go to the faucet and turn on the water. But clearly there are always opportunities because we always have situations where we run into water shortages, whether it's by acts of God or by acts of man. Those water shortages can exist. So there's always opportunity there. Whether I could say, there are small companies that have solar powered water filtration systems that can be used in Africa, where there's all this polluted water, and now all of a sudden these people can drink water because the solar powered contraption that can be wheeled out on a trailer can allow people to drink water and not get sick from it, which is a wonderful thing. Again, a perfect example of how a free market opportunity exists and can be very helpful in solving a problem. And as far as we talk about agriculture in California and how the water will affect that, that's one area that I'm a little concerned about, because even with desal and even with water conservation, no one really knows how long this drought is going to last. So I am actually very bullish on new agricultural products that are outside of California, still within the United States, but outside of California, because I think California more and more is going to have a harder and harder time growing, and that's where we get the majority of our produce in this country. So I think you're going to start seeing more farms popping up smaller farms popping up all over the country in order to meet demand. And honestly, I think that's probably going to be a good thing too, because when you take some of the miles out of food, not only does it make the food better, but it allows you to use less energy, and when we use less energy, that's always a good thing for the consumer. So I've actually personally been looking at buying land, all over the country, where I see opportunities for agriculture and opportunities that exist where I'm close to major roads, major outlets, major cities, and I've been very vocal about telling other investors that's something that they might want to consider as a great long-term hedge against disruptions in agriculture.
I read somewhere, now California is known for the almond, and I read somewhere that for one almond it takes 1 gallon of water to grow an almond. So that's a lot of water. Yeah. So I think the major problem with water is a majority of it is used for agriculture. Am I right?
Well, I think the problem is, a lot of water is used for agriculture in that region. You also have issues where, you don't have a lot of water, but a lot of the water is being wasted. One of the problems, and again, not to keep harping on this kind of government thing, but a lot of the food we get today is grown by these giant industrial agriculture machines, and they are heavily, heavily subsidized. And they don't tend to be particularly cautious about conservation because, they don't have to. because the government is always there to bail them out. Now, if you look at some places in the Middle East where people have been growing food for hundreds and hundreds of years in desert conditions and have been doing it successfully because they know how to conserve water. They know how to use water correctly. It amazes me when I go through a place like Southern California or Arizona especially, when I see these huge fields, these monocrop fields being sprayed with these big sprinkler systems. That makes no sense. If you are in a desert region and you need water, you use drip irrigation. You save an enormous amount of water, and you can still get the viability of the crop. We waste so much water in this country, not on a personal level, and in a business level, an agricultural level. And again, you can look back to the government as being a part of this problem, where we have price caps in some places, where they say you can't charge more for water, you can only charge so much for water. So water's cheap, so of course you're not going to conserve it. Why would you conserve it if you're not paying a price that is in direct correlation to the cost? Why would you conserve it? And we were talking about with the recent mandatory conservation efforts in California. The way I see it, the best thing they could have done was just allow the water utility to charge the consumer a price that is directly correlated with the cost of getting that water, cleaning that water, and getting that water into each individual's home and business. That is a market solution that could work. It always amazes me when you can look at other places of the world, and again, particularly in parts of Africa and the Middle East, where people have no problem growing crops, and they have significantly less water than we get here.
And that's a good point. Now, are there any companies out there that investors can invest in that could have the technology to offset the problem in California and other areas of the world where water is scarce?
Well, there's a number of water companies that are in waterworks, fixing pipes, and there's some desalination related companies. I don't typically buy those because I've never really seen a pure play that looks really good on paper. Honestly, I think the biggest winners in the desalination race will be a company like GE, basically the big dogs, because they control a lot of that technology. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any specific stocks I can offer for those. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that really rings a bell as being worthwhile.
Okay, great. Well, Jeff, thank you for your time. And if people want to find out more about your work and what you do, where can they go?
You can go to greenchipstocks.com. That's where we talk mostly about renewable energy and organic food markets, and also energyandcapital.com, which covers the entire range of energy.
Okay, great. Well, Jeff, thank you for your time, and hopefully you can come back on again soon.
That'd be fantastic. Thanks a lot.